This is Jim Bish with the Americans in Wartime Museum. Today's date is March 22nd, 2021, and I'm conducting an interview with Terry France in Sun City West, Arizona. Terry, would you please give me your full name and where you were born?
Terry France. I was born in Falls City, Nebraska.
And what war did you participate in?
I did not. I was in the military during the time of the Vietnam conflict.
But you were during the Vietnam War, so that's what we're looking at. This is Americans in Wartime, so we're looking for people.
A Vietnam vet era.
Yeah, yeah. Where was it that you said Falls City? Were you born in Falls City?
That's right.
And you grew up and went to school in Falls City?
No, actually, up till about age of 14, I was in Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Okay.
In a rural setting.
Mm-hmm. And you graduated from high school then in Falls City?
That's correct. I went to high school there my last 2 years. Graduated.
What year did you graduate?
68.
Which was right in the middle of the Tet Offensive when things were getting hot in Vietnam. How did you find your way into military service from high school?
Well, after high school, I went to the University of Nebraska at Omaha for 1 year, and I really wasn't ready for school. And at that time, you either enlisted or you got drafted. I didn't want to wait to be drafted, so I enlisted in the Marine Corps.
That was a pretty hard place to go into. Well,
I was ready for it.
A lot of enlistees were staying away from the Marine Corps.
Yeah. One out of every 24 draftees was drafted in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. What year was that you ended up enlisting in?
I enlisted May 1st of 69, and they had a 120-day plan where you didn't go into boot camp until 120 days to get your stuff in order.
Okay. So you were in the summer of 69 then?
I went in October 1st.
Okay. And where did you go to initially? Where was basic training, and how did you get to your in basic training? Where your location was?
We went to Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, California, and that's where I had all my boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
Until we went to about week 5 and 6, you go to Edson Range at Camp Pendleton. It's right on the ocean, and that's where you train with your rifle and you learn how to shoot it.
Mm-hmm. So this is October of 1969,
correct.
And you landed there. Remembering back at boot camp, was there anything that was difficult, or was there anything that really you remember about being a problem with boot camp, or that you liked boot camp?
Nobody likes it. It was pretty harsh, and I was a squad leader because I was one of 2 or 3 guys that had a little bit of education, and it was hard. There wasn't nothing easy about it, really.
Mm-hmm. What are some things what was the daily routine there?
Oh, a lot of walking, running, a lot of calisthenics, a lot of classroom. And you learn about every bit of military life, basically. What's expected of you, how things go. How to tear down a rifle and you can put an M14 back together in the dark. That's pretty neat. I mean, once in a while in this big dark room, you'd hear one of them springs go flying across the room. If you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But we could do that.
Yeah. What was the basic training, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or how long do you remember it?
Oh, I think it was between 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm. So somewhere around Christmas time of 69, you're wrapping up basic training.
Yes, that would be correct.
And
we went straight to Camp Pendleton for advanced infantry training.
Okay. So that's where you were headed, was advanced infantry training?
Yes.
How long were you at Camp Pendleton?
Oh, geez. We went through advanced infantry training, then we went through what they call BITS, Basic Infantry Training Specialty. And they was each about a month long.
Mm-hmm. This is in the deserts of Camp Pendleton?
Well, no, Camp Pendleton is 100 square miles. There's ocean front, there's mountains, there's desert. There's just a little bit of everything, but it's 100 square miles. That's a big place.
So you were at different parts of Camp Pendleton doing
Yes.
training
Yeah,
for different things? But infantry was the focus of all that they were doing there?
that's correct. I was, your O3 series is grunts, infantryman. I was chosen to be an O341, which is 60 and 81 mortars.
Okay.
And that was my bits training.
So that's where their focus was for you too, on that type of artillery?
That's correct.
So, what was the typical day like in training? There, do you remember what?
At
what
which-
some- at Pendleton.
Well, you get up and you do calisthenics first and maybe take a run. And then you start going to classrooms. And to these, you'd march over a damn mountain to get to this classroom. It wasn't just right there. And they give you instructions on these different weapons. Actually, at Camp Pendleton, you fire every type of weapon they have up to a mortar or a bazooka or mortar. Well, actually, we did fire anti-tank weapons from the shoulder. But you fire everything up to that. Everybody shoots the M79 grenade launcher. We didn't have flamethrowers. We did the rest of it. And we had classes on all these things too. And you got to be pretty good with some of them weapons.
So they basically gave you a little instruction on almost everything.
Yes.
And
yes.
Then they focused much more specifically on what you were assigned to do as far as maintain.
Well, that was they have advanced infantry training. So you learned all this training on all these weapons, and the bits of basic training specialty, that was the mortars.
Okay.
They also had O311s, which is nothing but a typical grunt. O331s were machine gunners, and the next O351 they shot the 106. This was basically a cannon.
Yeah, large stuff. Did you? So did they do some classroom education, then took you out the field, a little of both when you
Yeah,
did your
that's
training?
basically how it went. Go out and find out what you have learned.
And it was all different parts of the base where different parts were as far as what you were
Yeah,
firing?
like I said, they marched you some of these long distances to get to these classrooms out in the middle of nowhere.
That's the Marine life, comparatively. So in training, another 3 or 4 months at Camp Pendleton, or how long were you at Camp Pendleton?
I would say 2 months, and they was getting ready to send us home on boot leave after all this, and we all received our orders, and they were Westpac orders, which is Western Pacific duty, which would have meant Southeast Asia, and that's what we were scheduled to do. And we went home for, I think, about a 17-day leave. And that's been a few years. And anyway, by the time we came back, we had been reassigned to, they canceled all these Westpac orders for Vietnam, and they gave everybody that we graduated with, our whole brigade, our whole battalion, guard duty at Navy bases up and down the West Coast and in Hawaii. And that's where I ended up.
So in 1970, they were pulling back a little bit
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as Marines, and
We
you
were de-escalating.
you left, or you came back thinking that's where you were headed, was
Well-
Vietnam, and when you got there, you realized orders had been changed and you were
Well, we got these Westpac orders and they said go home for a while. Okay. While we were gone, we received these orders.
different. Okay.
And mine was at Naval Air Station Alameda in California, which is in the San Francisco Bay.
So you returned to Pendleton, or did you go directly to
No, I went
Alameda?
directly to San
Alameda.
Francisco and then to the Navy.
Because you already had orders when you
Yeah.
were back at home by
Yeah.
that time. And what was your feelings at that time when the orders changed? Was that a pleasant feeling or a negative feeling, or what was your mind as far as preparation of where you were planning on going to Vietnam, now you're not? What was your feelings about that?
It was very disappointing to me because that's why I enlisted. I figured I'm going to go over there, okay. And that's what I expected to do, and I was okay with that.
Yeah. And now you're in Alameda. When did you arrive? Was it early then springtime of 1970?
Yeah, that would be right, yeah. Probably late February. And it was a Navy base, Alameda at that time. It was a home base for all the carriers in the 7th Fleet. And they would come back to that base from Vietnam, and the purpose of that base was it was an air rework factory. They would take all the planes off all these carriers, and they'd overhaul them, and they would silver plate all the outside engine parts. That helped cool them. And one of the neatest things I got to do while I was stationed there at Alameda was I was designated to escort 2 civilian civil servants over to the San Francisco Mint, and we took a government station wagon, and they completely filled the back of the thing with silver ingots, and they'd be melted down and used to recoat these jet engines.
Wow.
And that was really neat going over there. And I had to surrender my weapon when we went in, which I kind of figured they would.
So they were using the silver in the mints,
Yeah,
exchanging it.
we just had a whole truckload of it there in that station wagon. Geez.
That was a little bit of money.
Oh yeah, and I thought, this is my big chance. I just got 2 civilians here. I've got a magazine and 2 in my belt. But
So how did they transport that silver? What containers was that in? And do you remember anything about?
I think it was just, I can't remember if it was
Yeah.
in boxes. I was just kind of in awe of the place. It was really neat being in there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But they just packed the whole back of that station wagon. And I'm sure they were limited weight-wise,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure silver bars weighed quite a bit.
yeah, but I can't remember if it was in wooden boxes or what, but I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to that since I wasn't driving and I was just kind of hanging out with these guys.
Yeah.
But
So all of that was to recondition aircraft to keep
Yeah.
them cooler. The silver did that much difference.
yeah,
Expensive coolant.
yep. That was government.
Yeah. That's so. While you were were you an MP then, or what was
Yeah,
your?
I was an MP on that Navy base. We did the gates. We had an alpha area, which is nuclear weapons, and we always had two guys on that around the clock. And we did a lot of special escorts, a lot of details. And one of the highlights that I wrote down there, I was on an honor guard, a color guard, for all the ceremonies that went on that base. And once in a while, we'd even go off base and do colors at like a bowling tournament, or we did at least 2 of beauty pageants, which was pretty neat. And because they're always real nice to you, they give you a lot of drinks.
Yeah.
But that was one of the highlights, is being on that color guard, because you had to be pretty good to be on that.
Yeah.
And when you get one of these damn admirals that would fly into that Navy base, and they got to have a big deal for him, and he has to give a speech, to stand out there on that tarmac, and there's 5 of you, holding up them flags, and the wind be blowing like crazy. And it got to be quite a challenge after a while. You get kind of cramped and tired, and you got to hold each other up. We did that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. Did you have to do any funerals? Anything like that? Do you remember?
No, didn't do any funerals.
Mostly other special events.
Yeah.
It seems interesting doing beauty pageants. That's something you would never think of.
Well, they had just asked for an honor
Yeah.
guard to do the colors, and okay.
Yeah. Did you have to travel very far for this? With this mostly in the San Francisco
less
area?
than 50 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Little radius. How long were you at Alameda?
Almost a year and a half, I guess. That was really my only duty station after training.
Yeah. Did you have much leave time, or did you have weekend leaves, or those types of things?
You're allotted 30 days a year, and I came back to southeast Nebraska 2 or 3 times. I came back once for my grandfather's funeral, they granted me emergency leave for that.
Mm.
And that was, they didn't have to, but they were pretty nice about it. And so I jumped in this kid Chevelle from Oklahoma. He was from Oklahoma, Duncan, Oklahoma. He had a 396 Chevelle, and we raced over that San Francisco airport. That was a lot of fun.
Did you visit around San Francisco then on your weekend?
Oh yeah,
and things like that?
we got over to San Francisco occasionally, and we've seen a lot of different things. Like I said the other day, I don't know if you were there. I said we got to see hair in San Francisco. That was pretty neat.
Yeah.
We got our tickets for almost nothing through special services.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, I was grossing 180 a month, so there's a lot you can't do on that kind of money.
Didn't have a lot of extra money.
Even in
floating.
70, 71, I mean, yeah. But we like to get over to San Francisco and just walk around.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of neat sights.
Did you go to any wineries or anything up in Napa Valley or anything
No, I
like that?
didn't. Yeah, we didn't have that kind of money. No. We just liked to look. And then we walked around Oakland some too. They're right to get, you got to get through Oakland to get to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And Oakland is nothing but porn shops and pawn shops. I mean, really, it is. And so there ain't much to do in Oakland.
Yeah. Did you work with a lot of naval personnel, sailors, while you were there on base?
Yes, we did. We worked a lot with the naval. They had their own security, but they were in roving vehicles. They roved around and checked. They mostly hauled drunk sailors back to the carriers. That was their biggest deal.
Yeah, they were at port for a while because their
Yeah,
ships were getting worked on and
yeah,
stuff in aircraft.
they'd be in port for maybe a month.
Mm-hmm. And what's the sailor to do when they're at port?
Well, there's probably a lot of them. They had their family meet them there or their significant other.
Yeah.
And, you got 2.5 weeks maybe. Well, you're probably still on and off duty.
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing little duties.
Refitting the
throughout.
ship. I got to spend a half a day on an aircraft carrier. I was a duty driver for a couple of our officers. They had to go meet some of these officers on the Yorktown, I think it was. And I just spent a half a day on that carrier with them, and all these guys showed me around and everything. And I would not want to be on a Navy ship for my tour. I mean, if that's what they tell you to do, you're going to do it, but I'm just glad it worked out that way.
Yeah. Carriers are big ships.
Yeah, but you get on any ship, you have no privacy. And if you're kind of an introvert, forget
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's.
I don't know how well they screen those guys. But, I mean, there's a million different jobs in the Navy.
Yeah, I think there's
But
quite a
that's
few.
their main one, is being on the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quite a few suicides, I think, on board ship.
Really,
From
I
what
didn't
I've-
really realize that. But,
I mean, just from different sailors that I've talked to over the years,
oh,
mentioned that there's a few why they're out to sea.
wow.
People that can't handle things, after a while. You're locked on board ship, I
Yeah.
mean, that's it.
That's it. Like I said, you have no privacy.
Yeah. 6
Forget
months
that.
at a time's a long time.
Yeah.
That they're out to sea. But so you're different to what are some of the different types of jobs you did as MP then? You escorted, you did security. They had a variety of different things, and most of your MPs were doing the same variety of work. They would shift you around where they needed
Yeah,
you.
and it depended on your level of clearance. I reached a secret clearance. Our guys that did the Alpha area, nuclear areas, they were top secret. And why they were there and I wasn't, I don't know. They probably just promoted enough guys to top secret as they needed them.
Yeah.
So I never got to that level. But yeah, we all pretty much did the same job. Most of our work was standing gate, security on the gates, in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was probably close to, I don't know how many, 20, 30,000 civilians working on air rework factories. And you got to shuffle them all inside and outside every day. And that's mostly what we did. And I hated it.
So you were, there was a large civilian base then. You were bringing a lot
Yeah.
of civilians
Oh, yeah.
through every day. Working
Probably a
as
lot more civilians than military.
Yeah. So it really was a factory base. They had a lot of stuff going on
Yeah.
with all of that. What are what are some of the think what I'm going to say here? The different. What was your living quarters like? Were you on base, living on base, or how? What do you remember about living at Alameda?
I lived in what they call Marine barracks, and there's everybody, well, no, not everybody, you know, they had three main sleeping quarters upstairs in the barracks, and we had two platoons, and one served this time, and the other one was off, blah, blah, blah. And the other platoon, they had a huge bedroom, one bedroom. And we had two. One was smaller and one was almost as big.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, you have no privacy there either. You know, we had probably 18 bunks in our room, stacked too high. And then you have a huge locker room with showers and everything in there. And shortly before I left there, the civilian services came up and they put stalls between the toilets. That's how much privacy you didn't have. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Some of the things they think of to do. So were a lot of the people living off base too, or was there a combination, or almost everybody on in the Marine side living on base? Do you remember?
Well, see, we had two groups of guys there. There was guys like me, and a whole bunch of us came in at the same time from that graduating class. And the other third of the guys, they were all corporals and sergeants that had just come from Vietnam. And two very distinct differences. We had just got out of boot camp, and these guys, they've seen it all, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of difference there.
Did that cause problems?
Well, no, not really, because they were all higher ranking,
Mm-hmm.
and you were just trying to figure out what the hell you're supposed to be doing. But I had never, even after one full year of college, I'd never been exposed to any types of illegal drugs. And I got a great education there. All these guys that were coming back, they were, well, a lot of them did a lot of speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what that was before I got there. I didn't know I'd never seen weed.
Yeah.
And I've sure seen a lot. I got educated. Wow, what a difference.
Yeah.
Some of these guys were pretty bad between the years from what they'd done, what they'd seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I sure didn't blame them for anything, because I didn't go through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was just part of the education process to me.
That's something that I've learned in interviews, that before 1968, you see very much of that of veterans coming back. They weren't really exposed much to it. But post 68, post TET, they were really exposed to it.
Yeah,
in large numbers. And many of them came back addicted and had all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So you were seeing that then with those that were returning from Vietnam. They knew all kinds about drugs.
Oh, yeah.
What was going on.
Yeah, they did.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them chose not to do it, not to do any, and some of them, they didn't mind doing about anything
Yeah.
they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
And those guys generally got in trouble
Yeah.
with the law, with our own people,
Yeah.
Because if you got thrown in jail out in town, and Monday morning you're AWOL.
Yeah. And I'm sure
They don't care where you are. They know where you're not.
Yeah, I'm sure that was much more problematic to being an MP with all that coming through.
Yeah.
And exposure and what your role was supposed to be.
Well, we had one guy that was caught by the local city police down on the beach with his sweetie, and they were smoking a joint. And of course, he got arrested for that. And first thing when the staff heard about it was, oh, don't make sure Blazer doesn't get a weapon. I mean, that was the protocol,
Yeah,
and that's the last we seen him.
yeah. Did you have any friends going through basic training that continued where you were at
Oh,
in
yeah.
Alameda? So
Yeah,
many
oh,
of the
yeah.
same guys you continued to go
Yep.
through with.
Yep.
Where did any of them become, pretty good friends during that whole process where you were together with each other for a long period of time?
Yeah, I had one very good friend, Frank Ort. He was from down in Missouri. It was north of Springfield. Actually, it was Harrisonville, which is basically on the south side of Kansas City. That's right. That's where Frank was from. And he was a good guy. And you got good guys. You got some guys that their character's lacking. We had a guy that went home on boot leave from Tennessee. Him and his brother robbed a bank.
On leave?
Yeah. I mean, what are you doing?
Guess
Like
he
you're
didn't
gonna
want
get
to.
away with it?
Guess he didn't want to come back.
Oh, he didn't come back.
Yeah.
What a dumb shit. But getting back to Frank, we just became close. We both in the same part of the world, and he was a real down-to-earth guy, and he was a couple of years older than the rest of us, which when you're 19, that's big. And tragic thing about Frank is I got out in August, he got out in September, early October. And he went to work for the local police department down in Harrisonville. And one day, him and another member of that office were walking back from coffee across the town square. And this young man took a rifle and killed them both, right on the spot. And it turned out he was unhappy with the local police because they were hassling about his motorcycle pipes being loud. He just blew him right on the spot.
Unstable mind, that's sad.
Hopefully he's still in jail.
That's sad. So, of your group, did many of them decide to re-up, or were they kind of pushing you guys out at that time as the war was winding down?
Well,
71?
we were all recommended for reenlistment, which is nice to hear. But the guys I was close to, we were called 2-year wonders. And we was just going to serve our 2 years and bang, we're done. We made our commitment.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew a few guys that most of them had the rank of at least corporal that would re-up. And they would stand to make a nice sized bonus, say if they signed up for 4 years.
And they did?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that...
A few did.
Mm-hmm.
And they were okay with that because everybody was downsizing.
Right, yeah. I know in that time period, 70, 71, 72, as it progressed through those years, they were really, the military was way overfilled with personnel.
Well, you figure draftees, I didn't want to serve with a bunch of draftees. They didn't want to be there. And that, you don't want to have somebody on your team that doesn't want to be there. And I don't care if you're playing soccer, or if you're in a trench with somebody.
Yeah. So that was an advantage. Most of the people that you were with were enlistees.
Yeah, we had one guy that was drafted in our platoon when we were going through boot camp.
Yeah, I'm sure they had those that were going through with you and even making it to MP, they were psychologically a little bit different than a lot of those that were drafted. They probably separated some of those out with you to be with the enlisted that were of the same stature, similar.
Yeah. Yeah, they, you could tell the ones that were drafted. Like I said, 1 out of every 24 was from a draftee status. Mm-hmm. And we had our one guy was from Wisconsin. He was a good guy, but he had asthma. And he thought he should have gotten a medical discharge. And they went around and around about that, but he was very good. He was one of our leaders. The day after we graduated boot camp, they released him because of medical. They made him go completely through boot camp though, and that was they didn't need to do that.
Go figure. So when you went through basic training, it was almost all enlistees then with your basic training group?
Yeah,
Class?
yeah, almost everybody.
Really? I figured there would be a significant mix of enlistees and drafted, but
Oh, no.
it wasn't. So
The
they
Army
must
was
have,
all draftees.
so they must have, when they did a draftee, because the Marines drafted a lot, so they must have had significant number of classes of just all draftees then going through.
Don't know. I don't.
Just because the number of Marines drafted, I mean, Marines drafted a lot of personnel compared to enlistees. But that's interesting. I never heard that before. I thought about that. But you were primarily all enlistees in your classes, your
Yeah.
class going through. So when did you mentioned it? When did you get out of the Marine Corps then?
Well, I got a 44-day school cut to go back to college. And so I got out that many days early, August 16th. And I signed up at Peru State. I took some really hard classes there. But I only did go there for 1 year. But I carried a high B average in accounting, business machines, electricity. So
Yeah.
that was
So they allowed you to get out early to make sure you were in on time to go to college classes.
Yeah,
and
that's
they
why
make
I
those.
That's why I got out early.
Were many in that same situation? I assume quite a few were wanting to go
No,
back to school.
no.
There weren't?
No. When we was in boot camp, we had guys in there that couldn't read and write.
Mhm.
They just wanted warm bodies. And that's no bull. That was the bottom line.
Yeah.
Get some warm bodies through here. I graduated with guys that I was ashamed of having, but they were just, like I said, they were just pushing them through.
Yeah. So when you obviously had to make arrangements then, saying that you were planning on going to college at the end of your 2-year service, and you yourself and the Marines made adjustments so you could get into school that fall.
Yeah.
It sounded like.
Well, like I said,
Interesting.
they were at that point, they were just didn't mind getting rid of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you completely out when you started at Peru?
No.
Out of the service, or you still were technically in the Marine Corps, but yet you were in college?
When you sign up at any military branch, you're obligated for 6 years of service. And so I had 4 years of standby reserve.
Mhm.
I could have chosen to be regular reserve, but where I was, I would have had to travel significantly from Humboldt, Nebraska to wherever.
Mhm.
Any kind of Navy or Marine reserve. Probably have to go to Omaha, I'm guessing.
So what did you do in those 4 years?
Well, I went to school mostly and I worked.
So that took the place of your reserve time?
Well, you're always it's always there. But if you're in the inactive reserve, you don't even know you're in.
Did you have to go to summer camp?
Nope,
So literally, you almost like you weren't there then.
that's correct.
Because I've known a bunch of guys came out and then they still have to do once a month training for a weekend.
Yeah,
and
well, it
maybe summer
depends
camp.
on where you're at, and what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Mhm.
Now later on, and when I was in the Guards, I did that every year.
Yeah. So your service with the Marine Corps completely ended in 4 years after your reserve window?
Yeah, that
And
would
then
been-
you joined the Guards later? Or how?
Yeah, my 6 year window would have ended in October 1st of 75. That was my 6 years. And then in 80 is when I joined the Nebraska Army National Guard.
Why did you, what prompted you to join the National Guards after your military service?
Well, we had just moved from Humboldt, Nebraska to York, Nebraska. And I had taken a job with Nebraska Public Power. And we was trying to buy an acreage, and we needed just a little bit more income, so hey, I just joined the Guards and made a nice little side income on that.
Mm-hmm. What was your commitment to the Guards? Was it 2 years, 4 years?
Once again, you sign up for 6 years.
6 years,
Yeah.
full 6 year commitment.
But the situation, since I was prior military, I could have served 2 months and say I'm done. And, that's,
So you could exit at any time
Yeah.
without having them hold something over you.
That's correct. And I ended up with the Guards, I think, around 5 years. And then I got out so I could take a better job with the company I was in.
Mm-hmm.
It would require me to miss all that Guard time.
Yeah. When you were in the Guards, was it like once a month weekend training and then summer camps, things like that, or was it that often?
Well, as a rule, it's once a month. However, after I was there for just a short time, I was in a transportation platoon, and I was just one of the guys. And but I was, about 8 to 10 years older than most of them. They were a bunch of young kids, and they just went down to Fort Leonard Wood and learned how to drive these military trucks, a Deuce, 5-ton tractor trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, like I said, 8 to 10 years older than all these guys. And our platoon sergeant, he was all the platoons, all 4 platoons in that company. The leaders of all of them were all full-time Army people. Okay. And our platoon sergeant was a mechanic, full-time there. And he took me aside after a month or two and asked me if I'd be his assistant platoon sergeant, since I had prior military. I said, sure. Well, shortly after that, he resigned to take a job as a truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just landed on me. And so as a result, you have one night a week where you do some, with all the staff there. And you do a lot of planning for the next outing, the next weekend. You do a lot of planning for our summer camp. They call it AT, which is annual training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually 2 to 3 weeks. So it was quite a commitment for me, besides just showing up for the weekend.
Right.
Because now I was running that platoon, and they promoted me to sergeant from E4 spec. And they eventually promoted me to E6 because I spent all this time sitting in an E7 slot. And my first full year in that unit, I was decorated with the Exarban Soldier of the Year. And the next year, I was given the Exarban NCO of the Year. And so I was very well respected, very well liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran this transportation platoon. We had 8 Deuces and 5 semi-tractor trailers. And we did transportation of goods for the whole brigade. And that's a lot of people. And if they wanted anything done, they come to me. And one of the neatest things we did was me and 2 other trucks, we hauled tank rounds up to this range for all these big tanks to fire. That was before Abrams.
Yeah.
Or maybe they had a few, I don't know,
Yeah.
back in 80. But we got to stand out there on the front line with this big tank company from Beatrice. And they were all doing target practice. And to see these 56-ton tanks rocking back is, geez, that's really something. That was one of the neater things we did.
Yeah.
But we hauled food to all the companies. There wasn't anything we didn't do, basically.
Sounds like your part-time guard job became almost a full-time job at
yeah.
different parts of the year.
Yes, yeah, it did take up a lot of time, and I would do things I wouldn't have to do. Like I'd sit down and like when we'd take these road trips or go up to Minnesota or wherever, I would try to pair up drivers that I thought could get along with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the first year, well, normally the first 3 years we went up to Minnesota to Camp Ripley. I think it's in kind of the center of the state, 2 hours from the Twin Cities. Yeah. And we went up there for 3 solid years and spent 2.5 weeks or so. And then the last year I was in, we went to Fort Carson, Colorado. And I was driving a 5-ton semi full of paper products. I was leading a convoy at 53 miles an hour. That was top speed. All the way across western Nebraska, down into eastern Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Didn't think you were ever going to get there.
Oh, man.
So how did your full-time job suffer when you were going, I guess it didn't matter, but.
Well, they
you-
lost, like when we went to Colorado, that was a 21-day outing for me. That was a little longer than most of them.
Yeah,
As far as work, if we was away on like this 21-day AT, the company paid my regular pay for me, which is kind of sweet.
Mhm.
And besides that, you get paid from the guards. And but our immediate boss didn't like it because there was that 3-week period when I wasn't there, and he didn't care about anything unless you're at work.
right.
And
They had to cover for you somehow.
yeah, well, yeah. They knew I was going to be gone. I mean, it was no secret, or
Yeah.
didn't spring it on them all of a sudden. They knew when. So they got to make arrangements to have somebody fill in for me.
So you, in the guards, then when did you get out of the guards?
Oh, it would have been about May of '85.
Mhm.
I got out to take this other job, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
And it paid off.
When getting back to the Marine Corps experience, when you exited the Marine Corps, that was, you were in the fall of 75?
That would have been when my 6 years ended.
Okay, yeah, 6 years. You were in the fall of 71 then?
Yeah,
When you're real,
it would have
before
been
you went to
October
school.
1st and the last day of September, yeah.
but you were in school since like August, so
Yeah.
you're, just, how was your discharge handled? Just signing papers and all of a sudden next you're on a train or plane to Nebraska and boom, or what?
Yeah, that's
That's
pretty
pretty
much
much
it.
it.
You had to go to about 20 different places on the base. You know, you had to get your shot records looked at from the Navy Corps there. They had you go to the local in-town bank there to make sure you didn't have any outstanding debts, which
Mhm.
we didn't. But
Yeah.
just a series of them like that.
When, how was your total experience in the Marine Corps? Was it positive, looking back, or negative? How would you rank it?
I'd say it was positive. I knew what I was getting into. I did my homework before I went in, and I talked to these recruiters all the time in Council Bluffs.
Mhm.
And they knew when I was coming in that they were going to answer a lot of questions, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, we had guys that had no idea what they were getting into. They were showing up for boot camp with a tennis racket or a baseball glove, and that's enough. You can't bring
Yeah.
anything but yourself.
yeah. They hadn't done their homework.
No. No. Some of them had no idea what they were getting into.
Yeah. I know that you have a son that's gone quite far in the military, after you. Did you influence your son at all with him deciding to go into the military, or do you know?
Yeah, it did play a big part.
Mhm.
Actually, another part that played in it was my son Jess, my first son, that was killed in '90. He was planning a military career, and he would have been good at it. We lost him, and I think that played a big factor with Jake.
Uh-huh. Going in. I know Jake's had a very successful career.
Well, he just retired. He was over 22. He retired as an Air Force captain.
Mhm.
So he made some pretty good money in there.
Has being in the service, being in the Marine Corps, has that benefited you years down the road at all, or not? What would you say?
Oh, I think so. Just how you carry yourself, just an overall experience. It was good.
Mm-hmm. Good education at that time point in life.
Yeah, I'm proud of what I did, and I'm still proud of it. And I work my body hard to kind of keep in some kind of shape like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing pretty good on that.
Yeah. That's good. Is there any final stories or anything that we haven't covered, or anything that you'd like to say about your experience in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War?
Oh, we were always ready to go, because I noted on your paper there, we were considered part of the Fleet Marine Force. That means if something happens, get up and go,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And that covered just about everybody on the Pacific coast.
Yeah. and you never knew when things were gonna turn
No,
south,
no,
so,
huh.
that sounds good. Well, thank you very much for your interview,
You bet.
and thank you for your service. Thank you.
All right, thank you.